I'd like to welcome everybody back. It's just about noon now. Welcome back to the 2020 Symposium for Scotch Broom. Just in case you missed it, our code word for pesticide credits was cherry, and you can post that in the questions box, or if you are on the phone, you can email that to invasivespecies@rco.wa.gov. And I'd like now to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. This is Joanne Sales from Broom Busters, and she's going to speak about cut broom in bloom, techniques and strategies to manage Scotch broom using manual methods. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you all for being here. Yes, I'm the founder and the director of Broombusters Invasive Plant Society. What we do is we cut broom in bloom. What I really would like to do is to show you the videos that are on our website, but you can go out at your own time, broombusters.org. And we have a video on how to cut broom and the history of Broom Busters, which kind of shows how we got from 6 volunteers to 500 volunteers cutting broom on Vancouver Island for over 5,000 hours a year. So how did that happen? So in the short time together, my goal is to explain how we cut broom successfully, how Broom Busters works, and how your community can do it. So as this is the solutions portion of the symposium, the mission of Broom Busters is to control the spread of Scotch broom on Vancouver Island, then Lower British Columbia, and the rest of planet Earth. We started in 2006, and the myths were you can't control broom, it's naturalized, give up. Now we cut broom, but I want to just start with a disclaimer. We know that the greatest harm done by a Scotch broom is not where people live, and we know that cutting alone doesn't always work and is impractical on a large scale. But at the same time, we have all of these humans, we cause the problem, and we are our only hope. So the ideal of Broom Busters is to educate people, give them tools, and give a technique that can work for everyone to get out and combat this invasive plant. So, and we need to prove that the Scotch broom can be controlled so that it isn't ignored on the provincial level. So we have proved it since 2006. Over 150-mile stretch on East Vancouver Island, broom is disappearing. There's still a lot of it, but it is disappearing. And it's not disappearing everywhere, only where people are cutting broom. So 2006, this was our first picture. We didn't know what we were doing. I need to make this go away here. Okay, so we were at a farmer's market, and we were talking about, oh, the broom is everywhere. What is this plant, and what do we do? And so we divided up tasks, and my job was to go to the town of Qualicum Beach and the Ministry of Transportation and say, why aren't you cutting your broom? Well, I asked them that, and they said, well, we don't have the manpower. So I said, well, if we cut the broom, will you remove it? They said yes, and the rest of it is history. And the Ministry of Transportation gave the same support for cutting in the outlying areas. The same year, I met a lifelong railway man, and he said, if you cut broom, when it's blooming, it will die. And the railroad people know a lot about broom. So the broom that we cut, this group of us on Memorial Road in Qualicum Beach, never came back. I mean, that's 14 years, and it never came back. But the rest of the roads in Qualicum Beach were lined with broom, and the town took us seriously, and that's how Broom Busters began. Why is my arrow's not working? I can't go to the next screen. Anybody have help?
Click on the arrow at the bottom of your screen that shows up there. You can hover over it.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so 2007, the next year, our numbers were still small, but the broom was so big that we looked like a massive army. There was just like 5 or 6 of us cutting those big piles. We got 2 responses. One is, that looks like fun, can I help? And the other was, you shouldn't be doing that, which is interesting. So that year, 2007, we got our name, Broom Busters, and we had created a slogan, cut broom in bloom. And we had a lot of people mad at us, which is very interesting. We had people writing angry letters to the editor, and people stopping on the side of the road, yelling at us, saying, you're a Nazi, a fool, that's prisoner's work, you'll never succeed, and you can't stop broom. So our mission was, we have to prove that we can stop broom. So 10 years later, we have proved it. Okay, the town of Qualicum Beach that was lined with broom has small amounts of it, and volunteers just go out and cut that. It's 90% broom bloom free. So other cities started to say, hey, we want to do what Qualicum Beach did. Qualicum Beach succeeded because of the support from the town. This is cutting under the power lines, which of course is another whole terrible story. But just to point out, this is the mayor, this is the town planner, and here are the council members. So when you have a town or a city that's very supportive, it makes a huge difference. So each year, more cities, more municipalities, more regions, neighborhoods started saying, hey, we want to do that too. How do we do it? So the key strategies with Broom Busters in eliminating broom, I first want to talk about how we actually do the technique of it. Okay, first, cut broom in bloom. Okay, for us, that's late April through May. Cut at loppers at ground level. Do not pull, do not disturb the soil. And we have found here, but there's no need to poison. And as we're volunteers, we can't do that anyway. Containment. So go after advancing edge and new infestations first. So people say, hey, there's a whole lot of broom down in this area. We say, well, that's not where we're going. We're going to get the small areas first, create broom-free areas, and eventually we get to the dense ones. Stop the spread, that's a priority. Create shade, cut off flowers, preserve trees and ground cover, and cooperation between municipalities, media, ministries, groups, communities, and volunteers. So in this picture here, you can, cutting broom is simple, but it has to be done right. If it's done wrong, it doesn't work. So if there's multiple stalks like there is here, you have to get down to the single root that's going into the ground. There's always one single root going down with Scotch broom. That's what has to be cut. And we say cut it once, look at it, cut it again. Okay, then you cover it up with soil or the ground cover. Usually on Vancouver Island, we have ground cover that's still there. And I think that might be a difference between what's going on here in Canada and what might be going on in other areas. So if the broom is too small, we say leave it to the next year or pull it in the wet season. If it's too big, cut at a level you can cut. That might be a foot above the ground, removing all the live branches. We have droughts in the summer, and usually the plant will die just by being exposed to the drought. So if you can't cut it, expose it to the sun, peel the bark back, attack it with a hatchet, and if necessary, if it's one of those really gnarly, horrible plants, leave it alone. We can just cut what we can. So in our area, about 80% of the broom cut properly will die. We have seen long-lasting drastic reduction in broom. Qualicum Beach is broom-free, and so are many other areas, municipalities, towns, parks, and whole roads and parks and towns and outlying areas remain free of broom years later. We have our problem areas, of course, transmission lines, railroad tracks, gravel pits, mowed areas, neglected clear-cut areas, development properties, and roadsides with poor broom. So one thing we've learned is that the return rate depends on soil and ground cover. So poor soil conditions make broom more likely to return. But broom does not return easily in areas with healthy ground cover, whether it's grass, salal, Oregon grape, and also the seed keeps broom's seeds from germinating. So we have found in our ecosystem that the herbicides that we have witnessed don't seem to be working that well alone. The broom appears to die but returns in a couple of years. In addition, the ground cover is killed and so more seeds germinate. Sadly, this plant was sprayed next to a pristine lake, and you can see that the broom plant is coming back to life. But all the broom plants we cut in that field never came back. Now we need more volunteers that go away from the cities and the towns to these areas where there's parkland and so on. We're also experimenting. You know, we're open to learn everything, and one of the things is winter cutting. We're experimenting with actually cutting like 12 to 18 inches above the ground, and the plant will not die, but it will not produce seeds, and then we can return in the summer to finish off the plant. So supporting volunteers. Okay, how do you get people out there? We found that when people are empowered, trained, given permission, and connected, they want to protect the nature around them. So we have community cuts where people come together to support each other and to train people to cut broom right so that the plant actually dies. Now, a lot of groups are protecting special areas, and that's awesome, but that's not what we're doing. We're just getting people to cut the broom where they live, on their own property, on their road fronts and parks. The good thing about that is that people take ownership and they continue to care for the area. And we also allow people to cut when they have time. So they have to come and learn how to do it properly, but then whenever they want to go out during that 6-week period of time, they can cut broom. So giving training, tools, permission, freedom, and gratitude. So what happens in each year is that delegations appear before city councils. The Broom Busters only work at a 6-week period each year. We have an active website with instructional videos and a page for each community, so people can check the beginning of the week to see where cuts will be. Area organizers get waivers signed and plan the community cuts. Volunteers are provided with tools and vests for cutting. Signs are placed on the road so everyone in the community knows cut broom in bloom. And the radio, newspaper, television supports the activities. We also do presentations to clubs, displays, at gatherings, parades, and we also go to schools, high schools. So what motivates volunteers? This was just something interesting, an observation halfway through our history. Classic economic theory says humans are motivated by external rewards and fear of punishment. But anybody watching this seminar knows that there's a third powerful drive, which is intrinsic motivation. Okay, so for people to be productive, happy, motivated, they need 3 things: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. We realized that the way that we are set up, Broom Busters actually provided this. So competence, people have to learn to cut broom, and then they're entitled, they're allowed to go out on their own. They have autonomy and they have respect to be allowed to do that. And also relatedness, when you have a group of people cutting together, it's amazing to see how much that you can get done. But even if you're out there alone, you know that there's 150 miles of volunteers out there working at the same task that you are. Some people love community cuts, and broom busting is a community builder. Some people prefer to cut alone, and that's fine. So we have designate areas where anyone can cut at any time. So motivating volunteers, this is interesting. There's the obvious ones. It's fun, good exercise. I get to be outside. I love nature. I can do it alone, or I can meet other people. I can do it when I want. I can see the difference. But this is interesting. A lot of people say, I never really noticed the roadsides or saw the environment until I started to cut broom. So we say, broom is the gateway drug of invasive plants. It doesn't bite, it doesn't sting, it's not poisonous. You can tell where it is. It's a really good place to start. And then from there, once people are involved in that, they move on to carrying other ways for nature. So some of the fanatics, these are just happen to be 3 of the fanatics in this one picture. Patrick cuts 170 hours a year. He had a serious illness at one time, and then he says, nature healed me. This is his way to stay involved in nature. Nancy just jumped in full steam, and I would always say, you don't see broom here, that's because Nancy must have been here. And Gord, that he and his friends, they formed a group, they just call themselves the Doom of Broom unofficially, and they just go out every year multiple times and keep their area clear. Permission makes broom busting possible, but autonomy makes it fun. This group here, this couple, I've never actually even met them, but in the town of Chemainus, the other volunteers couldn't cut broom anymore. This couple just goes out and has cleared the whole town of Chemainus by themselves, 60, 70 hours a year. Fortunately, we have had a pilot who goes up in the air and takes photos, and it's made such a huge difference. And anyway, so this is a picture of an interchange, and you can see there's broom everywhere. Okay, well, one time I went out putting up signs, and I saw these kinds of piles here, and I said, who's doing this? I didn't even know who was cutting the broom, doing it so well and stacking it so well. Anyway, finally, we found this guy, and anyway, he had been cutting broom for a long time, and this past year, he just reported 146 hours, and he makes it fun. He said, this is the battle of Hill 46. This hill here, he took it on by himself. Like most of these areas now are broom free, just from volunteers. Motivating volunteers, have fun. We have signs, we have vests, we have hats, we go in parades. There's also, like this was a farm that was donated to the city of Comox, and the whole farming area became just covered with huge broom, but the people of the communities, the Tri-Cities that are there together, wanted to clear that area. So anyway, they have cleared it now, and it's fields, and it can be replanted with trees, which the city is planning to replant. So anyway, we have about 100 community cuts each year at all different times, weekends, weekdays, mornings, and evenings. This year we didn't have community cuts, but people went out on their own because of COVID-19. But here's another group cut in Cumberland. I recommend anybody who wants to inspire volunteers, take lots of photos. Take it before you cut the broom, because people won't believe that there was broom there. They'll go like, oh, the broom is terrible here, because look, there's broom here and there and there. It's like, you should have seen it 10 years ago. Then they start to recognize that it's working. This was a contest between two adjacent towns. So piles on the side of the road are great advertising. So we stop cutting when the seed pods form. We start when it's starting to bloom. We stop when there's seeds. Okay, and then it's chipped in place. Now that's not ideal, but that is one way that we can actually do it. And I tell anybody that cuts broom that actually they're cutting more than the broom that they see themselves cutting, because people who see these piles then know, oh, okay, I can go clear my property now. Oh, you can actually get rid of broom. It's highly educational just to see the piles, and then they disappear. Actually, the chipper is out there right now chipping all the areas in the mid-Vancouver Island. Okay, partnering with a town. How do you get your town to agree? Well, we appear as a delegation every year, and that's important either to give thanks or to inspire a new council. You need to get permission from the town, and you need to support them by broom removal. So we have never been turned down. All you have to do is mention fire danger. If you look at this photo, this is a controlled Scotch broom burn, and this is a fireman right there and a truck right there. So this is huge, okay? And then you show pictures of things like this. This is just live broom on a dry year. And also these pathways that fire can follow in the transmission lines. So anyway, our fire chief of Powell River, one of the participating cities, has this quote. So anyway, it's not hard to get the town to be very supportive. Then you need an area organizer. Each one of these women actually contacted me. I didn't go out looking for them. They contacted me and said, hey, I want to cut broom where I am. So that person who is in charge will organize tools, keep contact with the city, volunteer, organize the cuts, and collect waivers. The newest group, this is kind of fun for next year, is Souk. And Souk happens to be where our dear Captain Walter Grant in 1850 brought 3 broom seeds to Vancouver Island. So the only reason why we are here together is because of Captain Walter Grant. Okay. You'll be surprised where help comes from. Like the pilot has made a huge difference for us because taking pictures like this area here that was obviously a forested area that cut by a developer, and then the broom from the side of the road moved in, and now there's nothing except for Scotch broom. There are a few alders that have broken through, but here it is, 12 years later, and it's still nothing but Scotch broom. And then this is, close to one of the towns, and then people start to realize, hey, this plant is very, very serious. Another surprise was a woman at the Canadian Forces Base in Comox in the winter before this. She said, hey, we want to have a broom cut. So anyway, we got it organized, and May 22nd, the Canadian Forces Base in Comox sent out 150 volunteers, and you can see the huge amount of broom that was cut in that one year. Now, I'll be honest, they didn't cut great. They didn't really have serious training, but they took out the bulk of it, and then the volunteers in that area have since cleared that road, and we have reports that there are far fewer car accidents, because the deer aren't jumping out on the road anymore. So this is our kind of weapons, right? I love this picture of this man carrying all the loppers. So this is one of our first broom busting teams. Okay, it's you can get many people interested, all ages. It's usually people who have time, but it's.
Joanne, you have 2 minutes left. This is your 2-minute warning.
Thank you. So anyway, we had 2 different people that took vacations to New Zealand and brought us back a lot of pictures of what happens when we don't control the broom. So this is New Zealand today, and we have other photos of that too. This is Vancouver Island today. Now this is a serious problem, because when you have broom growing in the transmission lines, and then you have the forest cut, then it's not that far of a leap to start looking like this. So our forests everywhere are very vulnerable, and when the forests are cut, broom moves right in from the power lines. So we asked the question, what is it that we want to leave our children? Here's a couple photos of the next generation, and we in fact do want to get this broom under control. We don't want to leave it in worse situations for them. I particularly love this young hand of the next generation saying, help, don't bury us in broom. So we're still learning, one issue that we're dealing with is doing winter cutting, because sometimes you can't go into an area in the springtime because of nesting birds or rare species in bloom, or simply if you have too much to do. For example, I'm an organic blueberry farmer. So we're experimenting with winter cutting, where you actually would cut it like 8 to 18 inches above the ground. The plant will not die, but you can get all the bulk of the plant out. It will not flower, and then during the drought of summer, you can go back and you can get the rest of the plant cut down. So that's what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you, Joanne. We very much appreciate your presentation. And I think it really does give us hope for the future to see that it actually can be taken care of, and definitely hope for future generations. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.